Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my new video where we are going to be going over my top 5 tips I think every single Ashe player needs to know. Now, my goal behind this video is to make you a better League of Legends player, as well as to give you a better understanding of Ashe as a whole. I'm going to put timestamps at every single point of this video. They're going to be up at the top, as well as the scrolling bar down below will be segmented into the different tips if you would like to scroll to a particular one. If you have any questions for me, I encourage you guys to comment down below or to contact me directly through the pinned comment. There is going to be a Discord link if you want to join. And finally, I'm a little bit limited with this format, only doing 5 tips because I don't want my videos to run too long. So please make sure, if you are an experienced Ashe player as well, to put your tips down below. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts, and you might help out a new player that's just stopping by the video. And with all that out of the way, let's jump into tip number 1. Alright, and getting into tip number 1 for Ashe, we are going to be going over some runes. We're going to be going over some items, some summoner spells, some counters, and what she can really do well, just so you have a good understanding before you get into the game of what you should be doing when you are playing Ashe. Now, the number one thing is you definitely should be maxing W into Q into E when you're playing Ashe. You should be going flash heal. You can go cleanse in very niche situations. Say you're going against a Lux in the mid lane and a Leona down in the support with a Jhin ADC. Cleanse is going to get a lot of use out of it. Next up, the items. This is really going to come down to the current game state and what is needed. Kraken Slayer is a great item for Ashe. However, it leaves her quite vulnerable, having no immortal shield bow sustained. So if you're going Kraken, you want to be using this item when there are very few threats on you. There are very few divers, and you're going to have a strong front line that can consistently peel, and they just expect damage out of you. Now, if you're in pretty much most solo queue games with a lot of divers, there's going to be a lot of assassins. Say there's like a Kha'Zix out of the jungle, maybe a Zed in the mid lane, and a Camille out of the top lane that are very hard to escape and position well against. Immortal Shield Bow is definitely going to be your go-to. Runon's does extremely well, just procking your passive slow on everyone around you, and then of course Infinity Edge is just a great third item when you are playing Ashe. As far as boots go, you pretty much want to stick with Berserker Greaves and then maybe Plated Steel Caps if you're against full AD, but that is it. As far as runes go, now you are a little bit mana hungry. They have increased the amount of mana that is going to be required for your W, so Presence of Mind is going to be great. You should always be going lethal tempo, and then you should be choosing your legend bloodline based off of game situation, and then also with the final one, again, it's just based off the enemy team comp. Now, the important part of playing Ashe and getting inspiration is the amount of utility you get out of approach velocity is going to be extremely strong, and then biscuits are very nice to help you keep sustained in lane. And finally, we are going to be going into the counters. So what Ashe struggles against are some of the mages coming out of the bot lane, like Seraphine and Swain can do extremely well poking you out from range and taking advantage of Ashe's kind of lower HP health pool. And then there are going to be a couple other ADs that can counter you to a decent degree, but there aren't really too many things that can take a huge advantage of Ashe. Your best matchups are going to be Xayah, Aphelios, Senna, Kog'Maw, Lucian, and Ezreal. So keep these in mind when you are in Champion Select and you are looking to pick up Ashe, and that will wrap up tip number 1. Alright, and getting into tip number 2, these are going to be a couple of small things that you can look to do in the practice tool to really increase your overall Ashe play. The first thing and the most important thing when you're playing with Ashe, you are immobile. You do not have any dashes unless you're going Gale Force. So what this leaves is that you need to have your orb walking down to an absolute T when playing Ashe. The last thing you'd want to be doing in a team fight is just sitting still and auto attacking. This is going to be just a surefire way to get absolutely dunked on by enemy skill shots, as well as assassins looking to take you out. So you should always be moving when you are playing Ashe, and you're making sure that you are maximizing your auto attacks in between it. Now, if you're winning a fight, you want to be orb walking forward, and if you're losing a fight, you generally want to be auto attacking backwards. If you're kiting someone out, you just want to go in the exact opposite way that they are trying to advance. So if they are trying to come at you down this line, you are going to be wanting to go down that same diagonal line if you can, just to create as much space, because you should be able to slow them and you should be able to get off a lot more auto attacks. So always look, whenever you are looking to pick up Ashe, maybe you're a little bit of a newer player, but you need to get your orb walking down to a very good degree when playing her. Mine isn't perfect, but it is to the point where I can play her to a competent level. The next thing that you need to practice when playing Ashe is getting an extremely good understanding of the missile speed. This is going to come into play because it's going to affect how much you need to lead the targets when you are playing Ashe in different situations. So just getting really used to the hitboxes, so you know when, even if they get hit by the side of the arrow, they're going to get stunned, and then where the arrow is obviously going to miss the target. Getting a really good understanding of this is going to help you land more ultimates. And as far as ultimates go, throwing your ultimate from the bush is going to increase your accuracy. Throwing your ultimate when moving backwards is going to increase it, because they're more likely to expect a ult coming out when you are moving forward. And then obviously Fog of War and targets that are next to walls are going to be great targets when you are throwing your ultimate out. So these are things you can practice in the practice tool, as well as making sure whenever you do throw out a hawk shot, the last thing you want to do is to short arm it. You might as well get vision over the entire map. You don't want to just be looking to throw your hawk shot out to right there and just have it explode and just give you vision for a little bit of time, when you could go over the entire map and get a really good understanding of what jungle camps are up, the jungle's positioning. This is just going to give your team the information it needs to succeed to a rather high degree. And that will wrap up tip number 2. All right, and getting into tip number 3, we're going to talk about lane phase and how you should look to take full advantage of Ashe's kit. The number one thing that you should be looking for are cooldown windows of power when playing Ashe. For example, if an enemy support has a rather large cooldown, that is very important for how the all-in and the lane mechanics are going to go, similar to what a Blitzcrank Q or a Morgana Q is going to be. When that skill shot misses or is used, you should look for a all-in after that. A couple of other things that you want to have stacked up is you want to have your range focus stacked up, so you can combine it with your lethal tempo for an absolute huge amount of unexpected damage that is going to be coming out of the Ashe. The next thing you want to look for when you are playing in the lane phase is you are able to chase people down to a just insane rate, even compared to other ADCs that have a little bit of CC like a Jhin. So make sure that you are making your intentions extremely clear to your allied support, because you are able to set up their all-ins quite easily with the slows coming out of your W and auto attacks and your stun coming out of your ultimate. It is going to make the support's job so easy to really enable that what they are trying to do. And that will wrap up this tip for Ashe. Okay, and getting into tip number 4, how to take full advantage of Ashe and her playstyle so you can carry games and essentially just get more LP and climb. Her strengths come out of her ability to get picks. So say you're winning the bot lane quite heavily and they're turtling under the tower and you are unable to dive them. Maybe you have a squishy support, or they have a decent amount of turnaround if you look to dive them. Roaming to mid lane or scouting out the enemy jungler with your E is going to be extremely effective because of your ability to hit an enchanted crystal arrow on a mid lane enemy champion. This is going to provide your mid laner with so much setup that it is very rare for them to be unable to at least convert it into a flash usage. So consistently look for roams and picks when playing Ashe. Do not always just rely on Ashe's decent team fighting. Looking for picks and playing from Fog of War, grabbing control wards and sweepers is going to be a hyper effective way to play out Ashe and make sure that your mid game is very strong. Now, when you get to the late game and you are just doing those really consistent team fights around the important objectives, Ashe thrives in front-to-back team fightings. This means that she is really vulnerable to enemy flanks. You want to scout out enemy flanks and discourage them from happening with making sure that you have the hawkshot up on possible flank locations and making sure that you are sticking with your team, because you essentially want to use them as meat bags that are going to protect you from just being being focused down by the enemy champions and allow them to peel for you. This is going to be extremely important for those that I always see a lot in my comments that are complaining about, oh geez, my teammates are always shit, how do I carry games? Use them as meat bags. If you are not using the time that they are absorbing damage and spells, you are being ineffective as Ashe. So always look to do this front back type of team fighting when playing Ashe, and the pick type of play style, you are essentially have two responsibilities: pick and front to back team fight damage. It is going to just really put you in a great position to climb. And that will wrap up this tip for Ashe. All right, tip number 5, we are going to be talking about Ashe's strengths in choke points, particularly post Runons. Her ability to just crank out a huge amount of damage and slows on a very condensed area is going to just be a very, very good thing that you should look to consistently do with Ashe. This is particularly effective at enemy choke points when you are around objectives. All the common choke points are very easy to know. They are just all these different ramps. So always look to, first of all, make sure that it is warded and that you have scouted it out with your hawk shot, and maybe you have some people to help you zone them into that choke point and funnel them into just taking a huge amount of damage that can happen when you are playing Ashe. It is a little bit more difficult for her Runons to get full effectiveness in an open team fight, maybe if it's in an open lane, as opposed to a team that is funneling into one of these really, really good choke points where you can hit several people with your slows. It's going to be a lot easier to hit your ultimate. Your ranger's focus is going to be extremely effective, and it is just going to be a great way to carry games, because a lot of the times in lower elos, people do not have good communications and they just follow each other, and forcing an enemy to engage you in a choke point is just going to be a great way to maximize your overall damage when you are playing Ashe. And that's the final tip, guys. If you have any questions for me, you can hit me up in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed the content, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. And as always, guys, take it easy.